Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm happy to be here with you today following the first weekend for some time when we were not under emergency powers. There is indeed cause for celebration, and more importantly, time to breathe and reflect. Our stepped approach has meant we have eased restrictions one level at a time based on the key indicators of risk. The decision to invoke these powers was a significance, entering an unprecedented period in the island's history, which required the government to mitigate a serious threat to the health of our population. Protecting the vulnerable in our community was our highest priority, and the emergency powers enabled us to do so swiftly. Before I cover this in more detail, I would like to invite the Minister for Education, Sport and Culture, Dr. Allinson, to take you through today's numbers and to update you on cinema, swimming pools, schools and safeguarding apps. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Chief Minister. I'd like to start with the numbers today, which cover the weekend period as well. The total number of tests undertaken is 6,402. We have had 6,386 tests returned, which means we have 16 people waiting for results. There are no new cases today, meaning that we are now on day 40 of no new cases. Our number of confirmed cases therefore remains at 336, and we have no active cases still on the Isle of Man. Today, Isle of Man students started their second full week back in their classrooms. Teachers and parents have contacted me about how well this transition back to normality has been, and I would like to thank all of them for their patience and flexibility. For those young people who found the last 3 months difficult, we need to provide space, care, understanding, and allow them to heal. The mental and physical well-being of all our staff and students has been the number one priority as we've dealt with the challenges COVID-19 poses. A lot has been already done to prepare teachers to reintegrate students back into their classes after being isolated at home for so long. But we also need to build resilience as we manage the risk this virus may present in the future and the anxiety this may cause. Being able to talk openly about this is important, but some parents and young people may not feel able to do this at the present time while they reflect on the last 3 months and what has gone on in their own lives. The Safer Schools app was launched on the island in September 2019, giving our schools and University College access to current information on the ever-changing world in order to keep our young people safer when online. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, we are adapting how the app is operated and extending access to the wider community. There are resources about mental health and well-being, as well as alerts about possible online harms. I would like to thank Zurich Municipal for their ongoing support of this important free resource, and details of how to register are available on the Department of Education, Sport and Culture webpage. As we emerge from the state of emergency, a range of services are now getting back to normal. The Broadway Cinema at the Villa Marina is now open for business and gives you an opportunity to catch up with the films you miss seeing on the big screen. The Dragon's Castle Indoor Soft Play Centre can now be booked, and extra hygiene facilities have been provided for everyone's safety. Guided tours of the Gaiety Theatre have restarted, and you can now book tickets for a number of events over the summer. Unfortunately, some shows have had to be cancelled or postponed, but we will be looking to arrange for more acts and shows over the summer, capitalising on the strength of Manx culture and encouraging more people to enjoy the entertainment the island has to offer and help support local artists. Over the last few months and time to look after our body and mind. Today, the NSC pool is reopened. The spa suite is also back in action, and the jacuzzi will be operational by Wednesday. All the regional pools are now open, and there are programmes suited for all types of swimmers. Opening up our sports facilities is also important for the summer holiday activities we offer for children from the end of the school term over the entire course of the summer. Manx Sport and Recreation will be running a full programme of multi-sport schemes at the NSC, regional pitches and schools in Peel, Castletown and Ramsey. Bookings can now be made online or through the NSC reception. The youth services will also be offering a number of holiday clubs, trips and wellbeing activities for children in years 4 to 6 and upwards. It is important we realise the power of play as well as the value of education. Children and young people will be supported by their teachers over the coming weeks with learning and encouragement, but we need to continue this reassurance and support throughout the summer to enable everyone to start the new school term in September with a positive attitude and a thirst for knowledge. Education, sport and culture are so important to our community. Over the coming weeks and months, please support what we have on our island. Help us regain what was put on hold during the state of emergency so we can emerge stronger together. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. Now, we were in a state of emergency for a little over 100 days. The introduction of additional powers provided government with greater flexibility during this time of extraordinary disruption and threat to health. On Friday, I invited His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor to revoke the proclamation of emergency. I was greatly relieved to do so. I have been looking forward to the day when it was safe to deliver on our promise to step out of your lives. I am pleased that we have been able to do this. The state of emergency may now be no more, but we cannot be complacent about the risks that remain. I hope, as I'm sure we all do, that we have weathered the worst of this pandemic. This is not a government that chose to micromanage people's lives. No one wanted to prevent you from seeing loved ones. No one wanted to prevent you from making your own choices. Now you are responsible for your own choices. As I moved around this weekend, life does appear relatively normal. We are in an enviable position. It was, of course, inevitable that the virus would arrive on our shores earlier this year. The question then was, when? And the question now is, will it make a second appearance? There remains a risk that it will. By making responsible choices, we can lessen the risk that any new cases would bring. We are in a different place now than we were in March. We have on-island testing. We have a robust track and trace system. Our community is much more aware of the steps required to reduce risk. This all means that if we were to get new cases in the near future, they would not have the impact the initial cases did in March. In the event of new cases, some restrictions would need to be reinstated, but we would hope that a full lockdown scenario would not be necessary. This is very positive in terms of people's well-being, their mental health, relationships, and ability to socialise. It allows businesses, large and small, to continue to flourish and for our economy to pick up. We will have the opportunity to get out and enjoy our summer. And this leads me nicely to our borders. We will continue to monitor the situation here and that of our near neighbours as we consider how and when increased movement at the border may be allowed. Our 5-stage framework for borders will be published this week. On Thursday, we will again look to see if we are ready to make announcements about moving to Level 4. Any changes to our borders will be gradual, careful and well thought out. If the Council of Ministers decide we are again not ready on Thursday, then we will review next week. We hear all the time that COVID-19 may be around globally for many months to come. So if it's not going to be a COVID-free world, then we must adapt our thinking to a world with COVID in it. So what I'm saying is, there are pros and cons to consider as we look at the steps which lie ahead. Is the pandemic over? No. The threat from the global pandemic is still real. Our duty to protect our island community from it is equally real, and it will remain for some time to come. And finally, from today, island residents will be able to access their usual dental services as they normally would. For further information, please see the dental guidance on the COVID website. I would now like to take questions, and first up we have today is Alex Wotton from Manx Radio. Alex, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Faster Mai.
Hi. The first question, just touching on borders and key workers coming over. We've already been told about the group from Jersey you mentioned a week or two ago, breaching COVID-19 exemption laws, and then 2 key workers appeared in court over the weekend for similar offences. Are there any other key workers that have broken coronavirus laws that we don't yet know about, and how many have been reported to authorities so far?
Well, I'm not aware of anyone else, Alex, at this moment in time. I obviously have to keep my distance from our police force, but you do find out when they go to court. Now, obviously, the two people that broke the rules, they were given a £1,000 fine and a 4-week suspended sentence. And I hope that sends out a message to anyone that they should not be breaking the quarantine. If we've brought people over here as key workers, I think they were medical workers, then they should respect our rules and regulations. And it's a small island. If you break it, you're going to get caught and action will be taken. There's no exceptions.
Well, with those two people, they're back in the UK now, I believe. Have you had that robust track and trace process with those people as well?
Yes, I believe they had been tested to make sure that they didn't have the illness and they're no longer on the island. But as I say, they've been to the courts, they've been prosecuted with a suspended criminal record against them. So it was disappointing that they did that. You would have thought people of their profession would have followed the rules. They didn't. They were caught and they were prosecuted with a fine and a suspended sentence.
Okay. My next question is probably for the Education, Sport and Culture Minister. Yep. In the NSC at the moment, there's quite a lot of PPE being stored. Can you tell us how much is there? Not only what kind of PPE, but how much it's worth in monetary terms, and where's it going to go when all the facilities at the NSC are due to open at the end of July?
Yes, what happened right at the start of the state of emergency is obviously the Isle of Man government was sourcing PPE. It was a real issue for us to get enough to protect our healthcare workers, but also particularly to protect those people serving an important function in nursing homes. And so the Department of Health and Social Care looked to the NHS initially and then far wider abroad. And can I just, while we're talking about that thank the island-based company Strix, who obviously have operations in China. They were very helpful in terms of mediating with some of the primary producers and getting some of these important supplies across to the Isle of Man. Now, those needed to be stored somewhere central so they could go out, and obviously the NSC was ideal for that. And so one of the main sports halls has been equipped. We have several millions of pounds worth of stores there, which will last us right the way, hopefully, through this difficult period we're going through. Those are simple things like gloves and masks of varying degrees, but also gowns and face visors as well. Obviously, as we open up the NSC, we're going to need it to find a better secure area for those. And work is currently underway with the Department of Health and Social Care and the Department of Infrastructure to move those out so that they can be distributed when they're needed, but also free up areas of the NSC, because certainly with the summer programme, we're going to need that extra capacity and extra space for indoor sports.
If I can say, Alex, before we move on, just how relieved I was that we were able to get all the PPE equipment. I was downtown on Friday and I was stopped by a nurse who worked at Nobles, who said to me that at no time did they feel threatened or worried because they had all the correct PPE equipment, and I think only 25 of our healthcare professionals, Department of Health and Social Care professionals caught COVID-19, and not all of it was as a result of working at Nobles. And I'd like to pay tribute to all the people involved in purchasing of the PPE equipment. We have been able to keep everyone safe on the Isle of Man as a result of that, and I wouldn't have liked to have been in the position to not have that equipment. Obviously, we did in the Council of Ministers, the National Strategy Group, have some worrying conversations about getting it onto the island, but we diversified our portfolio of people that we used to make sure that we had a good supply. And I'm glad it's been stored down at the NSC. Hopefully the fact that there's a few £1 million worth of equipment there, Alex, won't have some scally going down there to take it. It's well secured, and it's there to protect our staff and all the people of the Isle of Man that need it. Right, next we have Chris Kay from Energy FM. Chris.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister. I too have a question for Dr. Allinson, please.
Okay, Alex.
Good afternoon, Dr. Allinson. This is a statement taken from gov.im. It says that the free meal allowance in the island schools is calculated to enable the child to obtain a 2-course midday meal excluding drinks. Why are we currently only offering sandwiches to our students at a time when many free school meal parents may be furloughed and money is tight? And I have it on good authority that it's just as quick to prepare 2 hot dishes as it is to make up packed lunches, more people handle sandwiches than hot food, and the students who need free school meals, who need them most, they may be deprived of their one substantial meal a day.
Okay, I think that's a very good question, Chris. I mean, first of all, the reason we're giving packed lunches, not just the sandwich, it's a packed lunch, to most of the children in the schools, is we've had to redeploy staff to create extra staff for actually doing the cleaning. We've got enhanced cleaning throughout the schools, so we've had to redeploy some of the catering staff to take on that role. I'm very glad that they've been able to do that, because that's allowed us to open all the schools to all the pupils. Now, I am aware that some schools have actually managed to accommodate cooked meals as well, but most schools are giving a packed lunch to people coming in, and obviously those who are eligible for free school meals are getting that. What I'd like to do is, for those families who perhaps have fallen on hard times during the last couple of months, please approach us if you're struggling and you need to have access to the free school meals. You make the point about it being the only meal they may have during the day. What I'd like to reassure you is that the free school meal voucher system is continuing to the end of term. So for those children who are coming in, getting a free school meal at home, their families will also be supported financially for the next few weeks with extra money to actually provide food at home for them when they get back from school. And we are trying to monitor this situation to make sure that no child goes hungry during a period of time which has been obviously very demanding on lots of different families.
But on that, the issue of catering staff being required for cleaning, is cleaning while the students are still at school a bit like sweeping snow off the garden path during a blizzard? More cleaners are required at the end of the day when the classrooms are being deep cleaned, are they not?
They are.
Not during the daytime while the students are at school.
What we've done in each individual school is do a full risk assessment in terms of cleaning throughout the day, because you do have children moving around the school, going from class to class, going in and out of rooms, but also going outside. And it was seen as vitally important as we deal with the viral pandemic that we keep schools as safe as possible, both for the students, but also all the other staff who were working there. So cleaning was a key component to building up that confidence to allow people to send their children back to school. And as I announced last week, we've now got roughly the same number of children going to school as we would have expected before the viral pandemic. We've got over 93% of primary school children, 86% of secondary school children, a real vote of confidence in schools being clean and safe. But we will continue to try to adjust the meals system so that we can provide as much nutrition to those people who are in school.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. We move on now to Simon Richardson from Business 365. Simon, good afternoon. Fastyr mie.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister. My question is also for Dr. Allinson, please. Dr. Allinson, it's been reported that Ramsey Grammar School is actively preparing for a second wave of COVID-19 in the form of online lessons. Now, is this the case for all the island's secondary schools?
Yeah. I think the viral pandemic and the closure of schools was a wake-up call for education, not just here, but around the world. In the past, teachers have used online media, remote learning for various pupils, particularly those who can't come into school because of illness. But suddenly we were faced for the first time in our history with closing all the schools for a protracted period, and schools have had to respond to that. What we want to do now is learn those lessons, because a huge amount of good has come out of the experience of using remote learning. I know Ramsey Grammar School have upped the online provision that they gave during the pandemic. They've experimented using different platforms to give both recorded and live lessons. And what we've done as a department is set up a working group to get teachers who have been through this, to get those teachers who are experienced in terms of online education and remote learning together, so that we can devise a package throughout the education service. That will give us the resilience if we need to close schools again in the future, which I hope we don't need to. But it also extends the range of ways we can educate people. For instance, if they're at home and they're sick for a shorter period of time, or perhaps they're excluded for various reasons, we can carry on their education by using new techniques, by using new technologies in a way that their education isn't damaged by them not being at school. So I'm really grateful to all the school teachers, particularly those in primary and secondary, who've stepped up to the mark to using these various techniques. Again, one size doesn't fit all. Some primary school children find it very difficult to deal with online classes, and workbooks and telephone support is better for them. But what we need to do is learn the lessons of what we've gone through the last 3 months in terms of education, and learn some of these new tools, disseminate best practice so that we've got a far more resilient system in the future.
Okay, Simon, I always think it's good if you have
Thank
to have
you.
a
My
plan B,
second
isn't it? Go on, Simon.
Yeah, my second question, Dr. Allinson, could you just clarify the position for us in respect of the Isle of Man College, or UCM, I should call it? When is it expected that the academic courses will resume and all the night classes for members of the general public?
Yes, I mean, the key priority, obviously, of UCM was to allow those people who'd started courses, particularly some of the vocational schemes, to qualify and get the awards that they needed then to go on to either further education or into business. And I'm glad to say that really from last week, the UCM was opening up again, trying to get people to finish their courses, and actually got quite a few people to qualify in something they've been working at for 1 or 2 years. What we need to do now is, once we've dealt with those young people, start opening up some of the other courses that were available. During the pandemic, UCM laid on a huge range of online courses for adults and for people at home, ranging from things like Pilates through to yoga and mindfulness. And actually that's been extremely well taken up. So we need to, again, use those lessons from before to expand the range of possibilities for further education, and also for getting involved in hobbies and sports. We will be doing that over the next couple of months, but the key priority for us was the educational side of it with those young people. We're also very mindful of people leaving school who in previous times would expect to walk into an apprenticeship, walk into work. That may be a very different situation this summer. So we're working with various organisations, including the Chamber of Commerce, but also Department for Enterprise, to look at how we treat people, how we teach them the skills they need to get the jobs that may be available, how we allow people to retrain and change track in their careers in what is going to be a very difficult and challenging employment situation for the foreseeable future. If we can use this opportunity to look at retraining, look at increasing people's skills, again, we will have a much more resilient workforce, and as an economy and personally, we can get through what may be challenging economic times ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. And last but
Thank
not
you
least,
very much.
Paul Moulton from MTTV. Paul, good afternoon. First of
Good
all,
afternoon, Chief Minister. I would like to talk about the air bridges, actually, and the exciting news. Obviously, we can all go to Guernsey, but I just want a bit more information. Are we totally with them on the thing 100%? For instance, if Guernsey decided to open up to Jersey or to the UK, how would that affect our relationship with those flights to Guernsey? Because obviously we may not do the same here. Are you on the same page completely? In other words, will you do everything together?
well, we won't do everything together, Paul. What we've agreed is that if there are a fundamental change to either Guernsey or the Isle of Man, then our public health team will consult to see if we can continue to carry on the air bridge. I know, speaking to the Chief Minister, they have no intention of allowing other jurisdictions who have who don't have the same position as the Isle of Man with no cases. So Jersey, sadly, I know have had 5 or 6 cases in the last few days. So I'm afraid that rules them out. I mean, Jersey is a great place to visit. I've been there a couple of times on trips. And it's great to go there, but sadly they're not in the position that the Isle of Man and Guernsey are, so that would rule it out. But obviously if they decided to change their policy, then we would have to review that, but no plans at this moment in time.
As an aside, you see Jersey are going to open on the 3rd, I think, 3rd of July. They're going for an open skies back to, to the UK and other places to get their tourist sector going. Your response to that?
Well, I don't know if it's fully open, Paul, is it? It's free movement of people.
They will have announced it, as far as I'm aware, but it has to be ratified, I think.
Yeah, they've got to get it through, and B, I know they've been doing trials, and as I say, it's for them to decide. We've all got different ways of going about this. We feel that our way has protected the island well. Obviously, I monitor what happens in other jurisdictions to see if someone's doing something better, then we'll look at it. I know our friends in Guernsey will be trialling next week, testing people after 7 days, and then if you, on the 8th day, if you come back as negative, then you'll be allowed to go around Guernsey, but you won't be allowed to go to things like out for a meal or the cinema or a theatre or something where it's enclosed with other people. So we look at other systems. At this moment in time, I personally couldn't follow the Jersey system of allowing people in, testing them, and then allowing them to go around the island and carry out a test a few days later, because the only test that's available doesn't pick up the fact that you have COVID-19 until you're actively shedding and showing symptoms of the illness. So that can take up to 10 to 12 days. So you might be told that you're negative when a few days later you're positive and you're infecting people. But let's see what happens. I'm always prepared to look at other jurisdictions, and if they have a system that works, then I always think plagiarism is the most sincerest form of flattery.
But potentially, just to finish this question off, you could have this situation quite legally. People go Isle of Man to Guernsey, Guernsey to somewhere else, and in reverse, and they wouldn't be breaking any laws, would they, technically?
Well, no, they would only be allowed to go from the Isle of Man to Guernsey. They wouldn't be able. Well, they could go further afield if they wanted to, but they wouldn't then be automatically entitled to come back to the island. Obviously, right. we review the situation every Thursday. If the data supports changes, then that's something we will look at. But at this moment in time, the air link to Guernsey is the only way we're looking at where you can go somewhere without having to quarantine when you come back.
Fine. Education Minister, I've heard from somebody today, and I wanted to double check this story is absolutely still up to date. Somebody at school coughs, they have to go straight away and do a 111. They then were negative, but the whole family had to go into 14 days isolation, and that means they don't have any money coming in, there's no support. Am I right? Is that exactly what's happening now? Is that still the case? Because there's no confirmed cases, so a cough could be just anything now, right?
You're quite right, Paul. What we've tried to do is have a very strict regime in terms of testing and tracing, which has got us where we are now. But with the reducing risk on the island, it's become a little bit problematic, particularly when children are coming back to school, because suddenly they're getting routine, non-serious coughs and colds and illness that children do when they're at school. This has become quite evident over the last week or so, and I've been having conversations with the Minister for the Department of Health and Social Care. They will be reviewing the testing regime. They will be reviewing the information that's given out by 111 line now that we're in a completely different situation in terms of risk on the island. And hopefully the Minister will be able to make an announcement once he's made sure that in terms of the medical advice and that of public health supports any further change to the advice that's given out to parents and to families.
And is there any support for those the parents for that 14 days? I mean, are they on any benefits at all from government, or are they just on the, having to not have any money coming in?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the benefits available, the Treasury Minister has set out a whole raft of those, which are gradually, hopefully, going to be able to be withdrawn as the economy picks up. For those people who can't go into work because of self-isolation, there are various protocols in terms of public sector employees and also advice to companies that they should be treated as being off on sick leave because they've been asked to self-isolate. And certainly that's the case now. As we adapt to a very different risk environment, then obviously we can change that, but we need to still bear in mind that risk is still out there, albeit beyond our borders, and have that ability to change the various protocols we have if we start getting increased risk coming across from the United Kingdom and other jurisdictions.
Yeah, rest assured, Paul, that there will be a common sense approach to this. I too have had the emails from parents, and it's totally understandable from the parents that your children can pick up a little fever overnight and then be perfectly fine and running around the following day. So I have asked the Minister for Health and Social Care, along with Minister Dr. Allinson, to look into it and come up with a system that works for our parents, but at the same time protects our children at school. It's important. But anyway, thank you all very much for your questions. During this time, we've all had to think differently, act differently, and we've had to dig deep. There have been many sacrifices, and there may be still more ahead. At times, this has taken us to dark and uncomfortable places. While the horizon, much like today's weather, may seem cloudy, we hope for a bright and positive July. Thank you all very much.